Today, I would like to talk about colonial banqueting and Orientalism in the early 17th century capital of the Dutch Republic, Amsterdam. I will do so within the context of a particularly lavish banquet that was thrown by officials of the Dutch East India Company at their headquarters in Amsterdam on the 2nd of September 1638. And unfortunately, no visual materials have survived of the event, but on this slide I've included a painting of an imagined but similar banquet by the painter Peter Claes from 1627 to give you an impression of what the original event may have looked like. The guest of honor of this lavish banquet was no one less than Marie de Médicis, the exiled Queen Mother of France, whom we see entering Amsterdam here in this carriage in early September 1638. And the banquet that was organized for her displayed, perhaps for the very first time in Europe, a wide array of spices, dishes, and valuable material objects from across the Asian continent, carefully arranged according to size, color, and occasionally region. From the Molucca Islands, there was on display nutmeg and candied fruits. From Persia and China, there was silk, porcelain, pottery, and pearls. There were spices, including cinnamon, cloves, benzoin, ginger, and dragon's blood. There were minerals, salts, vegetables, including rhubarb, dyes and pigments such as indigo and camboge, waxes and oils, including beeswax and maize oil, incense and myrrh, sweets such as maize cookies, and at least one fastened dish. Now, the Dutch East India Company was founded in 1602, and unique for trading companies in Europe at the time, the States General of the Dutch Republic had granted the East India Company the exclusive right to trade and wage war for the Republic in Asia. And it was precisely this unique right that the Dutch East India Company sought to advertise in their banquet for Marie de Médicis. And this is why the writer of the commemorative book on de Médicis' visit to Amsterdam, the Amsterdam-based poet Caspar Barlaeus, sought to frame the banquet in terms of Dutch colonial conquest and expansionism in Asia. This is why Caspar Barlaeus, in his commemorative book, here translated from the original Latin, writes, quote, "The Dutch East India Company recruits soldiers, raises and sends armies, wages war in another world, conquers cities, seizes islands, operates fleets. In short, it initiates and accomplished those things which are not far removed from the efforts of the great powers," unquote. So in other words, Caspar Barlaeus sought to demonstrate that the East India Company, in fact, operated on equal footing with other European colonial powers at the time. Barlaeus, in his commemorative book, then went on to demonstrate that the banquet sought to target almost all of the five senses. He writes, quote, "The eyes of de Médicis darted around, and she imagined, while enjoying the sight and touch of the foreign and unusual banquets, that she ate together with Indians, Moluccans, Persians, Arabs, Japanese, and Chinese by a pleasant movement of the mind," unquote. So in other words, the banquet also sought to have synesthetic events meant to persuade participants, and especially the Médicis, of the pleasurable riches that the Dutch had forcibly imported from the Asian continent. I would like to propose that the banquet can be seen as a performance of Orientalism. And Orientalism is a term that was first coined by the scholar Edward W. Said in 1978. Said defines Orientalism, quote, as a Western style for dominating, restructuring, and having authority over the Orient, unquote. And subsequently, I would argue that the banquet did not seek to give an accurate representation of all the spices and valuable material objects that could be imported by the Dutch from Asia, but rather sought to vaguely appeal to the pleasures and desires of Europeans, the Dutch and the French, as represented by de Médicis in particular. So in the words of Edward W. Said, we may argue that the banquet strive to evoke a fabulously rich world. Thanks so much for your attention.